So for lesson 9, we're going to work on our practice of completing the square. So we want to rewrite each expression by completing the square. So our first step is to make sure we put in our lines. So plus 32 minus a line. We take the number in front of x, we divide it by 2, and we square it. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, 6 squared is 36. So that's what goes on each line. Remember, the first line gets a plus sign, the second line gets a minus sign. The first piece turns into x plus 6 squared, and then 32 minus 36 gives us a negative 4. So our equivalent expression here is x plus 6 squared minus 4. In the middle, we have x squared minus 4x plus a line, minus 5 minus a line. So we take our negative 4, we divide it by 2 to get negative 2. Remember, be very careful with your signs. And then we get a negative 2 squared, which is 4. So 4 and 4. We know our parenthesis becomes x minus 2 squared. And then negative 5 minus 4 gives us a negative 9. So our x minus 2 squared minus 9. In the last one, x squared minus 6x, or 16x plus a line, plus 67 minus a line. So negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8. Square that to get a 64. So we get 64 on both sides. We get x minus 8 squared. And then 67 minus 64 is a positive 3. So we get x minus 8 squared plus 3. So we continue on, x squared minus 7x plus 6. So hopefully you're kind of getting into the pattern. You're starting to feel comfortable with this process the more that you do them. So now we have an odd number in the middle. So remember, what does that mean? You could either go fractions or decimals. I'm going to go fractions for this first one. So I get negative 7 over 2. When I square it, I get 49 over 4. So that doesn't affect my inside parenthesis because I already know what the answer is going to be based on what I got when I divided by 2. So I know I'm going to have x minus 7 over 2. Now for the last piece, I'm going to want my calculator for that part. So we're going to be 6 minus 49 over 4. And that's going to give us negative 25 over 4. Okay. So again, I did the first one through fractions. In the middle here, I'm going to do this next one with decimals just to show it in a different way. So you got to be a little patient as you set things up. So 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. 1.5 squared is 2.25. So I got to sandwich those numbers in on those lines a little bit. I know my parenthesis is going to be x, and we're going to be plus 1.5 squared here. And then again, we're just going to use our calculator to do 2 minus 2.25 is going to give us a negative 0.25. Okay, you could put the 0 out in front, kind of up to you. And for the last one, so x squared minus 5x plus our line, plus 10 minus our line. So we take our middle number divided by 2. I'm going to leave this as a fraction. Square it, and we get 25 over 4. So 25 over 4, 25 over 4. So x minus 5 over 2 squared. And then we'll go to our calculator here to finish this last part off. 10 minus 25 over 4 is going to give us 15 over 4. And that's going to be a positive 15 over 4. So they are going to be our equivalent expressions through completing the square. We cannot solve the equation x squared minus 6x minus 12 equals 0 by factoring. That's because nothing multiplies to negative 12 and adds to negative 6. So we want to complete the square and then solve. So this is really going to be a precursor into what our next lessons look like. So we kind of did this at the end of the lesson on completing the square, where we said, all right, we're just going to set it equal to 0. And we're going to do our same process. And then once we finish the completing the square, then we'll talk about how we actually use it to solve. So we add our plus a line and our minus a line. So negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. So now we have x minus 3 squared. Negative 12 minus 9 is negative 21. So now we're set equal to 0. Well, we have a parenthesis squared, and we have a number, and we're set equal to 0. Obviously, we're not factoring. But when we use inverse operations, we can then add our 21 over to the other side. So plus 21 plus 21. That gives us x minus 3 squared equals 21. Well, now we can square root both sides, and we get, well, 21's not perfect. And we'll see, does 21 split? There's nothing that actually multiplies to be the square root of 21. No big deal. So all we do then is we have x minus 3 equals, we just go plus or minus square root 21. We'll add our 3, and we end up with x equals 3 plus or minus square root 21. And again, there is a square root involved there. We can't actually combine those. So that's going to be our answer. And that'll be something that we expand on in the next couple lessons, is going to be more of our solving with completing the square.